Your
it.
Zoom
So
is so beautiful.
yours too. We get to see the whole picture there. So and I think that resonating with what you shared. I mean, who wants a sustainable relationship, like in terms of it's just kind of surviving. It's not thriving. Life is about thriving. It's not about maintaining and surviving anymore, because we have the technical capacities, we have the intelligence, we have I would say even we're starting to get a glimpse on the narratives that we actually need to be working on in order to live at one in symbiosis with all other species on this planet, not necessarily being, maybe we are the virus of this planet, right? Think
Well,
about that. I don't want to believe that.
no, but there's this Canadian scientist who said that I don't know if necessarily we're a virus. In a way, I think we act like a virus. We consume and consume and consume. But one thing that's interesting about that viral is I think our economy works like a virus. No system, no natural system is on a constant upswing. And this is the expectation for economics. And I think what people don't realize is there must be an ebb and flow. And right now we're in an economic climate where the wealth is once again concentrating at the very top. And so the only people who are susceptible to any whims in the economic market are us. And because of that obsession with this economy that's always moving in a upward direction, we are becoming a bit viral to our planet, and not in the YouTube sense. So.
And instead of that, so let's think as the architects, which is the kind of the opportunity that we have now. Let's be the architects of this planet. Let's use what's there. Let's elevate it, make it more beautiful, heal what's wounded, right? And I'm not only talking about the physical wounds, but also the mental ones. We have a lot of work to do there, and I really see the work that's been done in Canada, and I have friends in Canada doing work in truth and reconciliation with First Nations, for instance, 100%. Right? And that work is really what we're talking about. And the beauty about this is that great thinkers like Naomi Klein, Canadian as well, says that environmental justice and social justice will come hand in hand.
But
absolutely,
justice is there isn't. It's funny. I used to argue with my sister all the time. She's an amazing thinker, and and she's a total warrior for social justice as well. But I used to always think, okay, we have to concentrate on poverty or the environment, or because and my sister said that it was very interesting. She's like, they're all so interconnected that one affects the other. There is no system that isn't connected. And it's easy. It's funny because we talk about earlier, just going back, are people a virus? It's funny that we kind of mentioned that. I'm gonna just move this slightly so you can maybe see a bit of what I have here.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, I'll get that set up. But here's the thing about humanity: we have the most incredible ability to create, fix. We've been to the moon. We fly faster than the speed of sound. If we look at all of the things that humanity can achieve, can we not protect the environment, take our food system back? What's great about it is everybody gets really down and, are we this and are we this, and we're screwing up without a doubt. But we actually have the absolute unlimited, infinite potential for change and forgiveness and reconciliation and recovery. Humanity is better equipped than anyone to make that happen. So something I'm kind of, always interested in.
Absolutely. And through our craft, right? So who are we to talk about the economy? We're trained as cooks. But
I own a restaurant, the economy. Right.
Yeah, you're a businessman as well, an entrepreneur. But I think that, everyone in their own craft, everyone in their own passion, like ours is food, right? Our language is food, our medium is food. So how are we translating regeneration, recovery through what we do? That's what we're going to do now. And we chose Oysters because we both resonated with the fact that this is one perfect example of how we can regenerate natural ecosystems by having pleasure, by enjoying. And I think that if systemic change has to be designed, it has to be delicious, right? And so that's kind of the you were sharing earlier about some interesting facts on oysters and how much water they filter. That's crazy. What's the number?
So if you look at oysters in terms of so one oyster can filter 50 gallons a day. And I'm going to put a really interesting video link up after this, so you can watch an oyster filter a completely black water space in a period of, you see the countdown on the clock. So when you think about how many, and then if you have an acre of oysters, they can filter 24 million liters of seawater a day. And if we look at the water as being the lifeblood of our planet, which water is and oxygen, then a creature that can actually filter and process and actually help clean the waters is incredible. They have the Billion Oyster Project in New York. New York Harbor used to be the biggest location of oysters. James Cook, they said, when he explored, he had to move around the oyster beds. And then, of course, we overconsumed, and we've been overconsuming oysters since the time. The Romans were actually 2,000 years ago were the first to cultivate oysters. And Caesar, the Balon oyster, the French Balon oyster, almost went extinct in Caesar's time. And he made it punishable to harvest that oyster. So, but anyways, in New York, they've started this Billion Oyster Project, the most amazing project. And that's something people need to know is, like, right now, one of the ways you can change the world is start looking at the positive stories and start supporting people who are doing these amazing things. So the Billion Oyster Project has only been around since 2000. 2018, record number of whales spotted in the harbor. Because the thing about oysters is they create a community. They create a habitat. They build reefs. They protect you from waves. They protect you from, it's so amazing. So it's this little creature that has such a massive impact. And for me, it's such an amazing way to look at humanity, is everybody does and filters their own 50 gallons of what, you know, you're in your practice, whether you're a cook, a teacher, a driver, it doesn't matter. You can actually have a tremendous impact. So oysters are one of the best ways to clean our oceans. And so instead of knocking down the reefs, we should be trying to build them up.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, could you mute your computer? Because I think I'm getting a feedback. Just perfect. I think that way I'm just mute, not your microphone on the computer, but rather the computer itself, or turn the volume down.
I will mute it.
I think that's going to work now.
I see. Computer's muted, but you can still hear me on Zoom.
Wonderful.
You can still hear me on Instagram. Okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Have we done it?
Tricks,
let's ask the people.
Have we done technology, double camera, lockdown edition, pros.
I love it. I love it.
Cool. So one thing I wanted to, as you were talking about New York, imagine the paradise when there was no city and you arrive and there's like, you have to go with your boat and to avoid the reefs of oysters. Imagine the amount of lobsters that were there, right? And it's the region, right? Fish. So the fish, you could see the fish, you could see whales everywhere. That's the potential.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They have the same story on the east coast of Canada. But when they came here, they could just scoop the codfish up in baskets. It was so plentiful. And a lot of people think that they have this thing in fisheries where they say this law of diminishing returns, that everybody believes the previous generation's stories about how much they caught are just stories because they can't attain it now. So you're absolutely right. That's exactly what you touched on. That's my whole point of recovery. That can happen again. Humanity has the potential to make it happen. Do we have the will?
Well, it has to be delicious, and it has to be a good business.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's a potential.
And oysters are both. That's just oysters. It's, we're starting our organic farm. We're planting this week. We're starting our organic farm here in Alberta. We start planting this week with the staff, and we're looking at how do we close containment. So we have chickens right now scratching on the plots of land that we just tilled to scratch and try and prepare them for the plants next week. So I'm just so excited to be, I'm going through a reclamation of my own. I watched a video I did 7 years ago when I had a rooftop garden and I had solar powered drip irrigation on my roof of my last restaurant. And then somewhere along the way, I still believe it. I still do it. I think it's important that people understand this, is that it doesn't need to be all or nothing. I believe when you give people a choice between having to do everything or nothing, people always choose nothing because no one can do everything. So I believe in your practice, you need to focus on the things that you can actually do, but it has to be purposeful. because everybody says, oh, just focus on the little bit you can do. We're past that point. We have to start recovering. So I do. I look around. It's stopping me from I'm saving things like ingredients. You know, that last bit of celery. Okay, I must make a stock. I cannot let this go to waste because it's energy that I'm expending. So it's an interesting concept.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I think this is something, I'm just seeing comments from people from all over the world.
So
I think
it's
there's some
crazy.
rooms up there. You know, we're all in different places. We're all in different places also in our lives. But the point is that wherever we are in our lives, we can still do the first step.
Yes.
And that's the only responsibility we have. We can't solve the freaking world by ourselves. But it's really about doing the first step. If it's using one less cup of plastic every day, that's already a very important step, and you must do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we're like, I see a lot, especially millennials, I see a lot of conversation about big picture thinking, and then it's like, what do we do? And then it's just like, okay, let's go have a beer, or Negroni in best cases. So it's you know, we gotta just start where we are, and wherever we are in the world. Yeah. So we get to cooking.
I would love to get to cooking. So I'm going to attempt to do 6 types of oysters. Just because I'm a psycho. And I pre-prepped a lot while we talk. This is me. Charles knows I'm a little extreme. I'm a little extreme.
Just going to do 2.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to do 1.5, actually.
Okay, perfect.
All right, walk us through the 6.
So I'm going to attempt. There's 2 I really want to do because I want to emulate the part of the world you're in. And a hero of mine was a French chef named Bernard Loiseau. Mm-hmm. And he lost his life, and that's a whole topic for another time when we're together. But he did these fried frog's legs, one of his most favorite dish, with parsley and garlic. So I have a breaded oyster that I'm going to fry. I've already made a parsley puree. And I have I've softened it a bit because the oysters that we have here are a little bit softer. I've done a confit garlic puree, and we're just going to put that in. Then I'm going to do a Korean barbecue oyster with kimchi, so just oysters and kimchi. Then I have a really beautiful cucumber and green apple and elderflower mignonette, because elderflowers are starting to bloom. So a little elderflower cordial. I'm going to do oysters just with lemon and the world's best caviar from the East Coast of Canada.
Okay, we're going to make the caviar conversation.
We got lots. Yeah, that's another time.
Caviar in
but
Bordeaux
I'm happy that I'm hearing that it's sustainably sourced as well.
Yeah.
I think that's phenomenal. That's another thing, is it's choosing products. I mean, that's one of the big, I know it sounds so cliche, you know, you vote with your dollar, but you really do. What do you want to consume? Who do we reward? And do we reward best practices? I saw a question, and maybe I'll level it to you real quick while we begin cooking. But what is your opinion on aquaponics and hydroponics as a solution?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of it is that it's not really complicated, and you can do it with reclaiming PVC, like plastic tubes, and reclaiming materials, and you can have, you know, even on a rooftop. A dear friend in Colombia, actually on the rooftop of her hotel, who's doing it in Mesitas del Colegio, in little village, and you know, it's really amazing, and it's simple, and that's one way in which you create life, you nurture life, and you get like the win-win situation of an ecosystem. It's a micro 100%. Ecosystem. Yeah,
and I think that's something, is that sustainably, I mean, aquaponics aren't perfect, hydroponics aren't perfect, but they're better. They're a better alternative. It's something we have to look at. I look at it this way. I always have this argument when it comes to the oceans. I'm just going to begin shucking a few oysters. So I'm just going to turn this down here.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, if you only have 100 tuna left, even if you ran into the ocean and wrestled it with your bare hands, you only have 100 tuna, or now you have 99 tuna. So you still, right now, I do think we need to stop consuming certain things and allow them to recover. This whole idea of recovery. Oh, you're very romantic with your hands. That's very good. I am not that dexterous.
I'm French.
Oh, let me try. Let's see. Now I'm going to try. Let's see if I can do it.
Don't cut yourself, please.
No, I did it. There we go. So a lot of people, I think, when they're opening an oyster, guys, one thing to remember is to be gentle. when you're first getting the first part, it will open just with a mere turn of your shucker. It will totally do that. So I think that's something. What kind of oyster are you using, Charles?
So let me talk about the oysters. And that way I'm also going to share the recipes that I'm going to be cooking. So these are the oysters that I'm using, which are from Marennes d'Oléron. They're very close from here. They're one of it's a bay, a beautiful bay in the Atlantic coast. And there's one thing in particular that I want to show you is that I'm going to open one for you here.
Okay.
And they're very light and kind of super soft. So one thing is that the water that is inside the oyster, right? There's water, right? So here I am actually opening the oyster, and I'm going to turn the camera a little bit so everyone can see, right? I already opened one. There's already a bit of seawater there. I call it oyster water or oyster juice. So I'm just opening it, and as soon as I open it, there's this juice that falls. And one day I was wondering, like, wait a minute, this water that comes out, what does it taste like? Because usually you chuck the oysters open, you know, on somewhere, and you don't really care about the water that comes out. So I was like, let's use this. And that's the starting point, the creative starting point for the recipe that I'm going to do, which is I'm going to basically make a sauce, a warm sauce, a bit like a beurre blanc sauce for those who know, which is basically getting a reduction of the oyster water. I'm gonna open a few, filter this water, reduce it until it's just tiny bit kind of over salted. But then I'm going to make a reduction of white wine here, and echalot and a bit of parsley, a bit like the beurre blanc. Gonna make the reduction of white wine, and then I'm gonna mix it with the reduction of the oyster water, and then I'm gonna make a sauce with that, and I'm gonna warm the oyster in that sauce and serve it back into its shell.
Perfect. So I did. I have a similar sauce that I made, and I can show it for the Lozol, because I agree with you. The oyster water, the oysters carry with them. What's so amazing about oysters is the oysters carry with them a bit of the sea from whence they came.
Exactly.
And so you're actually getting to taste terroir in such a direct manner. So here, this liquor that we did with the parsley puree is actually done with shallots, a bit of white wine, but then we took down this beautiful green puree is actually finished with the oyster water and just emulsified in with a touch of butter. So we're going to get that ready to go as well. So I'm going to set this up. So that's incredible. So what is the name of the oyster? Is there an English name?
No, Marennes is so
the region.
We tend to call the region, yeah. And it's basically depending on the bays where they are grown, and that's the bay gives the name to the oyster. So we have.
So it's the same here.
Yeah, but there's also different oysters that get different treatment.
I'll be right back. I'm going to the barbecue. Go ahead.
There's one oyster in particular that I absolutely love. They're a bit more round in shape, and what they do is that they make them grow in the ocean, and then they transport them up in the river, right? Yes, and then they finish the last few days or weeks, I don't know exactly how much time, they end by filtering a different water, sweet water, so the oyster becomes sweet, and it's salt and sweet. It's absolutely delicious. And they're round. Yeah, we call it belon, and they do it in
the belon.
Yeah.
So belon is the oyster. Belon is the oyster that Caesar. Yeah. I thought it was. I don't know. You have to double check this. I know Caesar had a punishment if you harvested the belon almost 2,000 years ago.
Imagine.
Because it was almost gone. It's funny. We think of ourselves as this finite thing, but the things we're seeing, we've seen before.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. Oh, I'm so excited for your recipe. Mine are all very simple. The first one, I've just started barbecuing it. It's just a little bit of gochujang, which is a Korean chili paste, and butter. And then I'm just going to top it with some chopped kimchi that I've been fermenting for about a week.
Okay.
And the next one, the one I'm excited about, is the fried one. I'm going to go through that right now. So this is Bernard Loiseau did this dish of frog's legs in France, where he would bread and fry the frog's legs, and then he had this puree. So this is, here we have our garlic puree. And then I can just move this way. You can see I've got all this crazy mise. And then I have a really fresh oyster I want to share with everyone. But these are some little breaded oysters. So I've got my heat on. I've got a shallow fry that I'm about to do, and I'll just show that real quick. I'm just going to take this and turn it around. So I've just breaded this oyster really lightly. I've just heated up my puree slightly. This one's really simple. It'll be sort of the first oyster that'll be ready to go, because I just want to make it very simple. So very bright green parsley puree. And I'm just going to begin frying this oyster very gently and quickly until it's just golden. You don't want to overcook the oyster too much. It should just sort of become a bit snappy in texture. So I'm just going to kind of move it, and I'll give it a little turn in just a second. And while those oysters are going, I'm going to prepare the shell, because I'm going to serve this back in its shell. I'm going to serve all these oysters back in their shell. So you see it's a very light golden crust. So here we have the Bailon oyster Bailon. Now I'm saying Bailon because it's in my head. So these oysters are from Prince Edward Island, the easternmost part of Canada.
And they look like the ballon, actually.
Yeah, they have that flat top and round. And so I'm going to take this oyster right here, and I'm going to fill it with some of that puree, some of that green puree. My oysters are almost done drying. So this green puree. So how this dish was traditionally served is it was served on a bed of the parsley, and then you'd have the frog's legs, and then you would dip sort of through. You would eat the frog's legs by the base. So you can see it's quite dark and brown. So we're gonna rip these oysters out and drain them right away. Get some paper towel. And then they were dipped through this really strong, so it was like garlic and herbs. It's like the original sort of idea. So I'm just gonna take that oyster, season it very lightly with a touch of salt. And this golden oyster will sit back with the puree. So we're just gonna put it back
so
in.
Nice.
And
it's so simple. It took you like 5 minutes with the mise en place of the parsley.
And I'm actually gonna just cut it so it's a little easier to eat. And then I'm gonna take a little bit more of the parsley sauce, just a bit, here and here. And then I'm gonna grab that beautiful garlic puree. So this is confit garlic puree, and I'm gonna set it there. And that's it. That's our first oyster, based on Bernard Loiseau. So that's number one.
That's very nice. That's very nice memory.
So we're, right? I thought it honoring him. A great chef, an absolutely phenomenal chef, for sure. Okay, so
which I think it's worth saying just a few words about Bernard Loiseau.
I think you should.
We could talk longer, but Bernard Loiseau was a great chef who had an incredible career and was really important in lifting up traditional kind of French gastronomy and in particular regional gastronomy in ways that were really elevating ancient traditions. And unfortunately, he got into personal trouble and financial trouble with his restaurant. And one day he lost his third star. He had 3 Michelin stars for many years. And after losing his third Michelin star, he decided to take his life and committed suicide. And so it was a big shock for the gastronomic community, for the chef community, because it wasn't only losing the star, but it was also, the pressures of being in this hard job that is running a restaurant, a successful restaurant. And I think, I think there's a lot there also to say about the business model of the restaurant, about how success works in restaurants that is often related to things like Michelin Guide, which is good and sometimes not that good. So anyways, really complex topic to talk about, but just wanted you to know who Bernard Loiseau is. A beautiful story, look him up.
You should. There's a great book written on it.
Severine wrote, if you wanted the correct spelling, Severine just wrote his name, Bernard Loiseau. So
thank you. That's amazing. I mean, that's something I think we talk a lot about the business owner. I'm just running to the barbecue so you can still hear me while I go. We talk about the business owner as the chef, you know, the businessman or the businesswoman. And I think that we often forget how important until we see a reduction in sort of the toxicity of the online attack of chefs. I do believe that everyone has a part to play, not just chefs in their kitchens. We must foster environments, myself especially. I work with this as much as I can, environments that are much more open, but you know, people.
Your restaurants are so cool to live.
Thanks.
And the people, just like so much admiration for the Shokunin team, and I can't wait to meet
they're amazing.
Team. Yeah,
the 8 team is incredible. We have so many great people. What's crazy about, sorry, I'm just looking for some chives. What's crazy about that though is that, you know, chefs are under a tremendous amount of pressure because there's only so much until people are willing to pay more for their food. There's a ceiling of what we can sort of serve, you know what I mean? And that's not sustainable either. You know, it's wrong that choosing the right product is almost always more expensive because the big corporations are subsidized. The big food is subsidized so heavily by our governments. And it's sad. So this is oyster number 2. Mm-hmm. I'll show you, I'll garnish this up. So this is it's just been barbecued. So you can see it's just lightly barbecued in a bit of butter with gochujang. This is some chopped kimchi.
Beautiful. Can you also show it to the
Of
YouTube?
Of course. Hello YouTube. I'm about to. I'm going to get too close to Instagram. So this is this really just a little barbecue oyster with kimchi, and then I'm just going to finish it really quickly with just some chopped chive, because in place of like a green onion.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up and told that story. So why did you choose, that's okay. Why did you choose oysters? You were the one right away, oysters. What is it that you love about this? What do you think it brings in terms of sustainability?
Well, I think it brings many bells. One, on a personal level, it's something very common here in France and also in Colombia. I grew up in Colombia. And I feel very much as Colombian as French, but I remember in Colombia having a different type of oysters. So since a very early age, I remember having the Caribbean oysters that were tinier, sweeter than, and they come from warm water than the French oyster. So there's kind of this thinking that oysters are really universal in a way. They are all over the place, right? Which is kind of a universal ingredient in a way. And then studying it a bit more in recent years, I understood the regenerative potential that they had. I heard about the Billion Oyster Project, and I often use. So last year we did an event for Climate Week in New York for this big UN kind of gathering with an amazing group of artists called the EMBC, which means emergent moments of beauty and connection. We created this collective artists kind of dinner. And the idea was that the meal showcased solutions for the climate crisis. And one of the solutions was an ocean dish that had 4-star oysters from a local project in New York that were helping regenerate.
Incredible.
So that's kind of where my connection to, when I think sustainable foods, the first kind of option, is always oysters.
Yeah, I would fully agree. It's one of the first connections I had was sort of a type of guilt-free eating, because even though there is a farming that happens with oysters or an aquaponics, they're still acting as filters for the ocean. And they're still one of the most, large-scale, universal, because they are so universal and they are consumed so universally. We have an opportunity with oysters to actually help reclaim that water quality or the ocean, the health of our oceans, and we can do it without sacrificing the pleasure of eating.
Absolutely.
We always talk about what we have to limit, sustainability, right? Sustaining. I'm just going to go to a couple questions here, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go. Okay, here we go. Can you tell a healthy, less polluted oyster by its shell? I do not know. Do you know?
I do not know, but you shouldn't be eating oysters from polluted waters for sure, because there are filters,
for sure.
right? So I think that's also a way to, if we grow oyster production worldwide, it means that we're filtering more water. It means that we're creating a synergy, right? And a kind of a positive feedback loop. And eventually, if we could have oysters everywhere in the world, we would have cleaner oceans. Actually, I want to point out this incredible project that I came across in Mexico.
Please.
Mexico. Unfortunately, I forgot the name, but they were invited to this event called Summit, where I was invited to give a talk and a workshop. And they gave us these Mexican oysters, and I was mind blown by the quality and the diversity. I never
Mexican
tasted
seafood is
oysters like that. Yeah. But also the guy told me, the guy who ran the project said, we're teaching local communities in kind of rural in Baja California. We're teaching them to seed the oysters, and they have to wait for a year and a half sometimes to start harvesting. But not only they teach them about regenerative systems, but they also give them a source of income. And they also create the most amazing oysters, bringing a new ingredient to Mexican cuisine, which is something amazing. If you're an entrepreneur anywhere in the world, you can do this, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to point to kind of how entrepreneurship can really help providing not only delicious ingredients, but also solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's funny. I believe that entrepreneurship is a way in which I work with a group called the Chef's Manifesto. And our latest project, and what I'm actually working on right now, is developing the first sustainable seafood restaurants for cruise lines, which are notoriously unsustainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the end of the day, they can have a huge impact. In my restaurant, I can feed 100 people a day in each restaurant, and I can reach maybe 200 people a day, or 1,000, let's say roughly a week, with this message of sustainability and sustainable seafood. On a ship, I can reach 20,000 a day across 4 ships. And I think that we have to look at that. It's not necessarily the enemy. It's actually something that we need to encourage. The proper and the right, doing the right thing should be rewarded no matter who's doing it, because we have to find a way to reconcile that sort of economic factor with the sustainability factor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
so
beautiful. And it's such a great opportunity, by the way. Congrats for that.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I know that's not easy, right? I want to acknowledge that things are not easy, because you have to sometimes compromise the dream, but we need to start somewhere. We need to start somewhere, and we need to do things. Yeah.
It was funny in the conversations I had with the cruise line, is they said, well, we can't announce all sustainable, because then people will say, yeah, but what about the other things you do that aren't?
Yeah, exactly.
And we need to change the narrative, in my opinion, a little bit. We still have to acknowledge that you can't just do it because it's popular. But if it's happening and something good is becoming of it, we need to celebrate that so more people get on board. Because if but that's why. So Chef's Manifesto, could you imagine if this is a silly example, but the example he gave in his speech, Paul Newman, you can look him up, I'll connect you with him. He said, what if every KFC in the world decided to use organic, locally farmed chicken? Think of the amount of farm opportunities and the impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because they're
not as well.
And the health. I mean, it's a disgusting organization in a lot of ways. So no, it's very interesting. This is one of my favorite preparations for something light, a little mignonette, basically. I do this a lot with celery because it's a forgotten vegetable, but I couldn't find celery. So this is a very acidic Granny Smith or green baking apple. Cucumber, some Saint Germain, some little elderflower, a bit of salt, and a splash of, and then just blend it. And this is a sauce for oysters. So it's going to get loud for 1 second. It won't last long. Ahead. It's just so fresh with oysters, and it doesn't compete too much. I'm just going to pass it. But it's just elderflower and cucumber and apple. It's just so clean. And clean is the word, right? And also the acidity of the Granny Smith. So let's talk, because it's easy. I mean, for us, we kind of combine these things. I often say that experienced cooks,
we have like a dictionary of aromas in our minds with our experience, and we're able to kind of I can almost taste what you're creating, right? By just putting it together in my mind. But for those who maybe don't have that experience, what is your opinion on what makes a good oyster preparation, right? There's acidity, this texture. Tell us about your perspective.
For me, I need texture in almost everything I do. I need some sort of texture, which is the alternative to Japanese cuisine. They love like slick. It's called neba neba. This aloe vera, this slickness between, if you ever had aloe vera or like vegetables, like small greens, there's a slick flavor. I'm not so crazy about that if it doesn't have some sort of crunchy element. So for me, best preparations for oysters involve texture, something to counteract. Oyster has that flavor, that neba neba, that texture, that sort of slick, chewy, slimy, even if you will, texture. And so to counteract that, I need something acidic or something sour, or sorry, acidic or hot. I like heat with it. Or I need some freshness to accentuate that. Oysters also have a tremendous amount of minerality that you can accentuate with something like cucumber. But this is like very acidic. And I love color. I love how oysters are this foil. So you have this beautiful deep green juice once we pass it that comes out. And then I can just spoon this over the oyster, and to get the crunch, I'm just gonna add some of the apples that were there. I'm just gonna crunch up some of the apples as a bit of a reminder, as Rodrigo puts it. So it's very simple to make that happen.
All right, so let me now
you jump in
about my process here.
Please.
For me, it's always about acidity, right? A bit of acidity. Oysters and seafood like acidity, and then just something that either by contrast or by softness complements the texture, and either contrast or softness. For example, one of the best oyster preparations I ever had, one of the simplest ones as well, learned from Nadia Santini in Dal Pescatore, 3 Michelin stars for almost 20 years. They used to Santini family put a cube of watermelon, just a tiny cube of watermelon on top of the oyster.
Gorgeous.
That's it.
Wow.
Right? And you get the watery, the juiciness, the sweetness, really nice.
Absolutely.
In particular for here, so the 2 sauces that I'm doing, I'm going to show you here what I've been cooking in the meantime.
Let's see. I need to see.
So here we have
ponzu as well.
So we have a reduction of white wine from Sémillon grapes. It's local here from Entre-deux-Mers. So it's a very nice kind of simple Sauvignon grapes with Sémillon. Reduction with shallots and the stems and some leaves of parsley, right? Very basic reduction. And here I have the other reduction, which is the oyster water, which it's like an amazing fish broth, super umami, right?
And a bit, and does it carry some of the texture with it? Does it have a bit of like kind of thickness to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I taste this pure umami. It tastes of ocean, pure umami. And for those of you who don't know umami, look it up. It's the 5th taste, right? It's really the brothiness. It's so delicious. It's really incredible taste. Look up also on my Patreon. I have an advanced class dedicated to umami if you want to learn more. But here I have the reduction of the oyster flavor, very flavorful, and also almost too salty. Okay, and here I have the reduction of wine, which is very sour. I'm going to combine both reductions, and then I'm going to add a bit of fat into it. It can be coconut milk, cream, or butter. I'm going to use this amazing local butter here, Beurre de Bordeaux, because that's where
French
I am.
Butter, man.
And I'm just going to mount it a bit like a beurre blanc, and then I'm just going to blend some of the caps. So another thing that gets wasted when we open oysters is the kind of the flesh
muscles.
Yes, the flesh that we have on the cap here. I took it off, but part of the flesh. And often when you go and eat oysters, they throw this away because they don't have time to do it. So I'm going to blend all the caps into the They're both reductions, and that's going to bring it together. Next one that I'm doing is the most simple kind of fresh and simple. The best way to eat an oyster is by itself. By the way, we're cooking them here and we're making, but a good oyster, if you want to know,
particularly a Bellon. The Bellon doesn't even need anything. It's got such a beautiful flavor.
Maybe one drop of lemon. One drop of lemon. So here I'm doing a very basic French sauce, which is like super simple. Have a look. It's this, Darren, but vinegar, red wine vinegar, shallots very finely diced, and thick, very thickly ground pepper. We can also call it mignonette. And then the final touch is I'm going to add a tiny bit of my oyster reduction, okay, which is something that is not traditional. Normally, you just put vinegar and shallots and a bit of pepper. Here, I'm going to use a bit of this, and then it lifts up the umami of the oyster. This is to be served cold, and then just put a tiny bit. I'm actually going to show you how it's done. Take the oyster, cut this little muscle that attaches it, just make it soften, and then you just add a tiny bit of the, right? And then,
because you don't want to overpower the oyster, you want to taste the water and the sea.
Exactly. And then I'm going to have this, and I'm just going to say thanks to the people who made this possible, who brought it here. Just a little thought to the people who made it happen to bring this to the house here, and those who tended the sea and the oyster and to the ocean. Gratitude. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I love giving thanks to the ocean. My staff think I'm crazy when I'm about to, even a lobster. I did a lobster demo the other day, and everyone thinks I'm crazy. And I always thank the animal or anything, the oyster. I always give a bit of a thanks. It's not necessarily a prayer or anything. It's just an appreciation of the product, because I think we don't give thought. I think you consume less when you give thought to what you're consuming. Yes, I think you're more conscious of it. Thomas Keller has that story about being in France and having to, he was burning the rabbits. So the French chef made him go and cull the rabbits himself. And after taking the rabbit, he realized, and he never overcooked it again, because he understood it wasn't just a mindless, faceless, something died, whether it's a plant or an animal, to give us what we like, to give us the things that we eat. So this is a little fun one. Again, I'm just keeping it really simple. This is a tomato gazpacho. So here's my oyster. Here's this gazpacho, a proper gazpacho though, made with tons of French olive oil. French olive oil, in keeping with the theme, because we're cooking with you in Bordeaux. And this has just been blended with a bit of chili and cucumber. And again, I'm just going to top it with a little fresh tomato. And it's just meant to be something just clean. Again, it's just got a bit of spice. It has that acidity that we were talking about. And so that's what we're going to do here with this one. I'm going to show, I have something I've been growing in my restaurant. Have you heard of the plant kinome?
No, but it sounds very Japanese.
It's very Japanese. So kinome is a Sancho pepper plant. One of my favorite ways to have an oyster is with a splash of lemon and a smashed kinome leaf. So I'm going to show you guys the kinome leaf that we've been growing in the restaurant.
Beautiful.
Because I believe that you have to find ways to utilize herbs, especially in Canada right now. It's just starting, so there's no green. If I take you outside and show you what's happening, there's no green yet. There's very little happening yet, because we're just starting our growing season. So I absolutely love it like this. So here's my shucked oyster. This is a kinome leaf. It's very spicy. It's very peppery. These are really big, so the bigger they get, they lose a little bit of it. But this leaf, so that's beautiful. Just the kinome leaf from the kinome tree. And we're just going to take the tops of this, and I'm just going to smash it, because so here's a question: slurp or chew the oyster?
Ooh, that's a big one. Depends. I would say it depends. Depends on the size of the oyster. Depends on the I would even say that, yeah, it depends on your character, if you're a psychopath or not. I don't know. It's really interesting because some people just can't stand
Chew it.
chewing it. Yeah. And some people can't stand eating it whole. So it's really a personal thing. Yeah.
So I'll bring this here. So this is the oyster now with the kinome, and I should bring that kinome over, and just a bit of lemon, like you said. And then I'll just eat it because the leaves have so much citrus. They have so much pepper, so much spiciness. They're so great with oysters, but you have to chew it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Wow. So let's see some questions. Here we go. I have a question. Charles, how hard is it to teach empathy towards animals and nature to others?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you for that.
It's my friend from Spain. She does the most, she's very intellectual. She has the best questions every one of these lives.
Well, it depends on how you understand hard, right? But I think that it might be hard to get the person to accept to go and live an experience that might change their thinking. That's the hard part. But then once one is confronted to the mortality of the food that you eat, once you empathize with the thing that has two eyes and two ears and a nose and a mouth and hair, like you, like a rabbit, like a cow, you connect with the animal. And once you see it die, once you see the moment, right, the instant where the life is gone, that moment of silence is solemn. It is sacred in a way, whatever you understand by sacred, but it is important, right? And I think that that's the easy part because we're human. And once we see that, we can't go back. It changes our lives. In my opinion, every single cook that cooks chicken should kill himself a chicken once in his life before being allowed to cooking the chicken. Same for fish, right? You must go fishing before you're taught how to fillet a fish. And I think that's kind of an idea, a kind of big dream that I have for food education in general, even in to really bring the ethics of life
100%.
into cooking. And it starts by the practitioners, but then I think it can be extended to everyone. I've done a few experiences that have been amazing. If you want to eat the lobster, and I'll make a delicious coconut lobster on the beach, but if you want to eat it, you have to take the life yourself. And it's been a really incredible experience. I've done it, and then I say it's easy. The hard thing is to get people there. But once they're there, it's very easy to really connect and empathize with the animals and it's the life that you take.
I completely agree. I get this comment all the time because we raise a lot of animals. Right now, we're raising Chinese broiler chickens. We have our hens. We even raise pheasants. I have something very fun. And they do this. They create the most amazing thing. I have to share this with you because these are from the pheasants from my farm. And look at this. Look at this beautiful pheasant egg.
Oh.
So here's one of our chicken's eggs.
Yeah.
And there's our pheasant's eggs, and they're so rich.
Can you show it to the other camera?
Of course, yeah. Sorry, keep reminding me. I'll do it. So that's that's from our chickens, and that's from our pheasants. So we have a game bird that exists in Alberta, and we let it move around and run around the field and scratch and be natural. And so the egg flavor and we're trying to replicate natural systems on the farm. We're trying to recover because any agricultural system generally, I think we've lost our life. We went for an hour.
Oh, something happened.
Are you there? On the computer? Oh.
We got cut from Instagram.
I'm going to go back on for a second on Instagram just to wrap it up. And then we can jump on. I forgot. I didn't realize an hour had passed. The conversation's been so crazy.
So let's finish those recipes, and then we'll stick around on YouTube.
Sorry, I've got you on mute.
Oh,
there you go.
So just let's finish our dishes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then we go back to YouTube and we hang a little bit more.
So let's just quickly do Instagram for 5 more minutes, and then YouTube again. Okay, perfect.
Put that mute to the computer so it doesn't reverberate. Thanks.
You got it. Sorry, guys. That was crazy. We lost it. I didn't realize it'd been an hour. It's amazing when like-minded humans get together and actually start talking. And I think you find this amongst your own friends, is that time just goes so fast. I can't believe that's been an hour. It felt like 15 minutes. So we're happy to get you all back. We're going to take the next 5 minutes just to finish our dishes, give you some final sort of hello again. Thank you for everybody coming back. Sorry, that was an hour. It's kind of crazy. Oh, Charles, this is the gold caviar, the Canadian gold caviar. So Charles is going to be joining us here in just a second. We have my friend Miyazaki from Cork in Ireland. I'll show you guys. That's Canadian sustainably farmed caviar. I'm going to eat all of it. Wow. So salty and soft. This is a complimenting texture for the oysters. Oh, I'm so glad you guys have time for us today. So I guess I have to finish the last and sixth and final oyster. And that's one with preserved lemon. So I have one more oyster to shuck. Here we go. And Charles is back, or will be back in just a moment. And we're back.
And we're back.
I can't believe that was an hour.
That was already an hour. That's crazy.
That's insane. And we've just been talking for just a moment. So
Right,
I'm going to
so
finish my last oyster. So go ahead, you continue. So my final and last oyster is just going to be preserved lemon and caviar.
Oh.
Caviar will accentuate the softness of the oyster. Preserved lemon will create a bit of that brightness or acidity without being acid, just more like it's something you can chew. And so I have my preserved lemon now. Oops. And a giant bunch of, I'm using trout roe. I've already done the caviar. So this is local trout roe from that we actually cure ourselves from the trout of the season. So I have to do a bit of a Japanese one. And that's the trout roe.
Beautiful.
And I have done 6 oysters, I think.
Right. Always. I have done just half an oyster for now, but now
Your
I'm about to finish mine.
Much more complicated.
No, I'm just a different. I mean, you're into boom, boom, boom. I'm into like.
Yes, I am definitely into boom, boom, boom.
All
so
right,
let's have you finish your dish.
Yeah. So, apparently people are not seeing me.
Yeah, you're a little frozen. It should be here shortly.
That's weird.
You can't see Charles, but you can hear him.
Okay, so hear me for now. So what I'm doing is, it's funny because I think it's uploading quite well. Anyways, so I reduced my wine reduction and my oyster water reduction. And here it's kind of ready. Now I'm just going to add a tiny bit of cream on it, just a spoonful of cream, and I'm going to just let it melt in there.
We'll watch Charles on YouTube. I'm just letting them see you on the YouTube, so then they can see you and hear you.
That's amazing. So I just added a bit of cream here. Now I'm going to add the caps of the oysters right in here, and I'm just going to blend quickly to get an emulsion. At the same time, I just cut a tiny bit of parsley, very thin, and I'm going to use this beautiful. This is the flower of the onion, right? So the onion grew to a point where it's starting to push a flower. I cut the flower so the onion can keep on growing, and I'm going to use the stem of the flower of the onion, which is absolutely delicious and crunchy. So this is going to be something that's going to go on top of the just to bring a bit of freshness and crunchiness, and of course the visual of this beautiful thing. And then I'm going to add a flower, and I just want to make a little mention here because today is the birthday of my dear friend Alejandro, who passed away in November, a chef, and his favorite flowers were this. Pensamientos, pensée, I forgot the name, and forget-me-nots, that's the name in English. And so I'm going to add just a few petals of forget-me-nots in this dish to remember my friend Alejandro, I wish.
That's a tragedy.
Yeah,
So soon.
yeah. Your friend met him, right? Your
That's
friend.
right.
What's his name? I forgot the name.
Ryan O'Flynn.
Ryan
O'Flynn.
and Alejandro
Yeah.
cooked together.
They built, they built indigenous, like Alberta, the indigenous tradition of building and hanging meat in a teepee. They did that there.
Amazing.
It was crazy.
Yeah, they did it in Colombia.
Yeah.
So, anyways, just a reminder how fragile life is sometimes, and to never forget to live it fully and mindfully, because we never know when it's going to end.
Well, I mean, I think COVID gave us a bit of that experience.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like all of a sudden everything was sort of taken from us in a way. And I think that we have to look very deeply at recovering that, even after COVID, we have to recover a lot of what we've lost. But I think we have more to gain if we look at it that way. So you're going to blend all of that now with the oyster tops, the abductor muscles from the oysters. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have enough liquid here. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of fresh wine.
Beautiful.
Nice.
So much acidity. Fresh wine is amazing. Do you use,
That's it. Right. So now I have, perfect. Now I have my emulsion. And what I'm going to do, it's foamy. I'm just going to drop my oyster into the warm broth without boiling. I'm just going to warm it up. I'm literally, it's not even mi-cuit. It's just heating up to a temperature where it can just grab the temperature for about 45 seconds. So I'm adding 6 oysters, 2 per little entree that I'm doing here. It's kind of an amuse-bouche or an entree, and we do this often for New Year's. I'm not sure if I'm back.
No, you're not.
Here. You're not?
But
that's crazy.
Go close to your YouTube camera with it, because I'm recording you here. So.
Cool. So there we go. So here I added the oyster into the juice, foamy juice, and the reduction, right? So now I'm going to take you here with this other camera. Just a second. I'm going to do a proper shot here. It's funny because I can see you very well there.
Yeah, right. I know. It's just it's not loading for some reason.
I'm going to put you here, the computer. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Now
so
we're
now
set.
So now here are my oysters, right? So I'm going to take one oyster. It's just been there for maybe a minute. I'm going to serve. Just going to serve one for now. One plate, I mean, but I did 2 more because I'm going to do it for my sister and my dad.
Gorgeous.
A little bit of this broth that is super umami.
Man, I can't wait till we cook together again. I cannot wait.
Just a bit of parsley, fresh parsley inside, just to give it that liveliness. Look at these beautiful slices, right? Of this is the stalk of the onion, right?
Yeah. Gorgeous.
I'm just going to put that here. And then to finish, a little forget-me-not petals, so we don't forget
Alejandro.
how precious it is to be alive. Right.
It's incredible that we're able to do this.
Yeah.
Bring it over top. Let's see it. That's gorgeous. Such an incredible dish.
Right. A little.
You're the master.
Warm oyster. No, you're the man. You did 6 dishes. I did 1.
No, I just played. Mine are very simple, so I'll just quickly show mine. So here are the 6 dishes. So here's the Bernard Lauzot fried oyster with parsley puree and garlic puree. Then we have the oyster with tomato gazpacho and some tomatoes, just simply with lemon and caviar. This is with preserved lemon and trout roe. Then we have this beautiful one with the cucumber and the Granny Smith and elderflower, and then our little kimchi and barbecue kimchi oyster.
Wow, that's a tasting menu right there.
Right there, a tasting of oysters. Guys,
let's make it happen. I want to go back to Calgary and cook with you.
Well, you were supposed to be coming in August. I hope it still goes. I hope you know, we're traveling by August because we have some amazing things to establish and cook together. I love how two people can be very different, but also share the same values. You know, you said I'm boom, boom, boom. You're very, you know, smooth and wonderful. And yet here we are sharing the exact same values. And I think that one thing that is great about all of this in community and in this process of recovery is it's going to mean everyone has to come together. And it doesn't matter how, if we're going to recover. So, you know, I think it was a really amazing, amazing experience. Charles, thank you so much for joining us. Your Patreons on YouTube, we're going to stay on with you guys for what, 10, 15 minutes? We're going to answer some questions.
5-10 minutes.
And
we're
hang
just
out.
going to turn off here.
Problem.
Go, if you're on
and I'm
Instagram
coming
and
to Bordeaux because that is the most
yeah.
beautiful cooking space. I feel so bad. That's why I had to do 6 oysters, because look at where you're cooking. I mean, you're in Bordeaux. What can one do? So it's incredible.
Well, I might just, you know, come here and we'll figure it out. We'll do something wonderful.
We will. Yeah. I can't wait.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone on Instagram. If you want to continue with us, go on YouTube. My page is Charles Michel X, or you just look Charles Michel Chef. You'll find it. Subscribe and then come watch the continuation. We're going to be there talking with my patrons and Darren. See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so here we are.
Here we are. That was wonderful. I can't believe how much time passed. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's more than an hour. So right now I just allowed all my patrons to join.
Wonderful.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Elisa is there. Hello, Katie. Elisa is not far from you. She's, well, kind of far as well, but kind of.
Hi, Katie. Hi, Elisa.
Hi, Darren.
Hello. I see an Anna B is joining. This is going to get huge, Charles.
Yeah, and Nicole, Etienne. Yeah, so nice to see you all. Thank you for joining. So, I don't know. I'm going to taste this little dish.
That's the one. I'm going to taste all 6 of these little dishes.
We wish we could share with you all.
I'm upset you're not, you know, that I really hope you're still able to come join us in August.
Yeah, I do hope so too. Fingers crossed. We can do some oyster stuff. Right. Okay, more people joining.
Yeah, I'm open and available.
Feel free to anyone from Patreon, if you want. All my patrons here, I'm so grateful to see you here. Hello, Elisa. Esmeralda is also joining.
Hello, Elise. Hello.
Feel free to unmute. Like, this is open space, so just unmute and go ask away for Darren. Any questions you have about anything? Let's talk.
Anything.
Thank y'all both for doing this. I really appreciate you doing this last minute. It was pretty exciting to get that email, Charles. So Darren, I have a question for you.
Sure.
One of the most amazing parts of the entire Final Table show for me was seeing you win the Japanese, like get the best dish. It was amazing. Your appreciation was, I mean, you could feel it through the screen, and it seems like you've had to prove yourself quite a bit. And I'm wondering how you've had to prove yourself since the show, or if it's been a little bit easier.
You know, it's interesting, you know, when you're on the show, these moments, how they sort of try to amplify them or make them into something. But the truth of myself is, before I did the Final Table, I was freaking out and I got to prove myself and I got to do everything. And I was reading every cookbook, and a friend of mine was like, you got to come and have a drink with us, like calm down. I'm like, no, leave me alone, because I'm very intense. And Charles can tell you this. And so he's like, look, man, you're never going to be on the show again. You're never going to get to go and do that. You don't know what it is. So you must try to have a good time. And so the whole time that I was there, I was trying to really experience and enjoy myself. And that episode came, and I know it's cliche because maybe it's reality TV, and I'll take with it, take it with a grain of salt. But my life can sort of be split between sort of November 17th, 2017, before and after. because the validation in my own city, and not just for Japanese cuisine. I had there's a video on YouTube. If you look up Darren Maclean, Pechakucha, I give a talk. I had a rooftop garden. I raise my own animals. And because where I am is a little more conservative part of Alberta, it's like the Texas of Canada. Just the amount of like negative energy that was put my way. People, you know, Charles has experienced this being, I would say that, you know, the negative energy, the positive becomes more overwhelming, but when you're trying to do something. So since the final table, I give very little concern to what people think of me now. I just do what I think is right. And I think that's what we have to do as a society or even in our own lives. So yeah, it was a very visceral reaction. I could not keep back the tears. I'm not a very emotional guy generally. That's not true. I'm a very emotional guy, but it's usually frustration and anger, right, Charles? So I found it very liberating. The show was very liberating for me. And that moment, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Everybody had questioned my choice of cuisine and what I'm doing. And everybody had told me that's not Japanese or and it's like, I know, I studied and I have so much appreciation for the depth, that culture, what it's given to me, what it's given to my life, and all culture in general. I'm so blessed to be from Canada because we are such an ethnic mosaic where people can be exactly who they are. We have our problems too, but for the most part, you know, it was pretty incredible. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was incredibly poignant. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Very nice, Katie, of you to bring that up, because it's like you're very sensible to these things, and I really appreciate that, you know. And for us, and there was actually a moment, Darren, I'm not sure if you remember, but because we, of course, it doesn't, behind the cameras, it's not behind the scenes, it's not like what you see. Of course, we had to wait very long times between, you know, the decision of the judges and us sending out the plates and
at the end.
Yeah, but I remember us doing this finishing this, and when the moment when we learned who won, a few of us turned back to you, and we were like so happy for you. Like,
and I started dying.
You deserve, yeah.
That's what made me cry. To be honest with you, it was like, oh man, I'm gonna get all emotional right now. It was, everyone knew the thing about the final table is, I find this is, you know, I said at the end of the Instagram, Charles and I are very different in terms of our mannerisms or I mean, you could say whatever. But when you have people who are all working in the same direction, who care about the same things, there's this incredible camaraderie that had Charles won in Japan, it would have been wonderful as well. I was so elated that he cooked for my friend Narisawa and kicked the crap out of everybody else, which was fantastic, because I'm so glad I didn't have to cook for him. But I do remember that that's what got me, is I was kind of holding it together. You know, you get that like, okay, okay, I've got it. And then Charles turned around. I remember Charles and Rodrigo, you guys, because Charles and Rodrigo were ahead of us. They were ahead of us at the table. And then Mark and Shane were there. And the only people that I ever felt that were very intimidating to cook against were Charles and Rodrigo. No, but in a sense, in the competition, you know, and Mark and Shane, and of course, you know, Shannon. But at this point, who was left? And I remember Shane was clapping, you turned around and clapped, Rodrigo, and it was such an emotional reaction. It was visceral. I couldn't control it. It was literally from the bowels of my being to see the gratitude. And I was so grateful for that, to them, for caring about me so much, because I do everything by myself. I don't have a community here. So my restaurants, I own them all by myself. I'm always solo. And so, you know, so to see that and know that I had people that, even though they were competing, they treasured what I had put forward, was like, changed my life. So yeah, I remember that moment.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of moments. We had a lot of good moments in LA.
Yeah. And it's two things I want to mention quickly, but then I'm happy to hear more questions.
I've got all the time in the world. This is fine by me.
Yeah, me too, actually. Except my dad was inviting me to.
Bring your dad over.
There's a little human over there, and he's planting food. He's amazing.
Bring him over. We want him.
We'll go there in a second. But I just wanted to kind of wrap up on this topic. One is that the final table was truly special behind the scenes because we really wanted like the best to win, of course, but also it was a platform for all of us to shine. And I think that, you know, there were moments that was just like really special that to see everyone shining, you know.
I mean, I remember when they tried to get us to say things like, who do you think's going to win? And who do you think is the best when somebody would be eliminated? No one took the bait. No one took any of that bait. And that's what made the final table so special.
True. It's true. I remember us, you know, hey, please say I'm going to win. And I was like, I'm not going to say I'm going to win because I don't. I'm just here doing, you know, good stuff. Anyways, that was really special. And there was truly camaraderie there. And remember, actually, I'm going to share this video with patrons soon and you, and maybe we can post it on Instagram too. Remember that moment when we came back to the hotel and we went for a drink or a beer or something?
Yeah. And
we were in the corridor and you were explaining your relationship with Narisawa and being like, dude, we won Japan. I have this video.
I need to see that. Yeah, so Narisawa is the reason I cook Japanese food the way I do. I'll tell you a story about the generosity of chefs, and I think it's important for people to hear this because chefs right now are getting this rap that the environments are stressful and we yell and we scream, and there's no chef alive who hasn't gotten cross or upset in a kitchen when you have a vision, especially if you're artistic. But we're at the whim of the people who we cook for. I mean, I'm in the middle of COVID and I'm doing I'm doing free meals for first responders, and it's just some butter chicken and it's simple. And I got a 1-star review for my first responder meal, which is free, saying it was too small of a portion. This is ridiculous. I can't believe, I mean, it's a free meal. It's a big portion. I mean, so people and you're inundated with that hate in a restaurant all the time. So when somebody in your kitchen makes a mistake, it hurts you personally not because you're angry with them, you know what's coming. And so I want to share a story of generosity with you because Charles is one of the most generous people I know. And he embodies the spirit of what Narisawa did for me. So Narisawa, if you don't know, I mean, you saw him as the final judge on the final table. He's one of the best chefs in the world in terms of his ability, his mentality of utilizing technique with Japanese ingredients. He's brilliant. 7 years ago, I went to Japan and I ate in his restaurant. And he comes out and does the polite walk around, you know, greets the tables as most Michelin star high-end chefs do. And we begin to have a conversation through a translator. And I'm asking him all the silly things a young chef's asks, you know, how are your inspiration? How did you get your start? Constantly. And then Narisawa, we start talking and I ask him about this concept of what's called Satoyama. And so if you look around Charles and you see the garden and you see the wild plants behind him, that's Charles's Satoyama. Directly translated, it means the space that exists between the mountains and the sea. But it overreachingly refers to the people also within it. So it's the people and the food that are around you can be considered your Satoyama. So, and I asked him about this concept and he goes, can you be ready in 45 minutes? And I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna have a beer with Narisawa. This is incredible. He's gonna sit down, we're gonna have a beer, I'm gonna wait, we're gonna have a conversation. He's gonna tell me about his philosophy. I'm flipping out. He says, no, can you go to your hotel, get your bags, can you be ready in 45 minutes? I've never met him. I was traveling by myself. He took me for 5 days around rural Japan. We went fishing, we went foraging, we went to holy sites of Isojingu, where the temples have been for 2,000 years. Never met me a day in his life. So as much passion and intensity as you see, most chefs are very generous people who are just trying to please everyone. And when you're trying to please everyone, and that's why you saw such relief on my face in the final table, because up until that point, I had only pleased and I had never looked inwards at what was important to me. And COVID has been a real powerful time for me to actually reflect and have a moment because I haven't stopped in 10 years. So it was incredible. And I think that generosity of spirit is embodied in Charles. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke up his butt or anything like that. Sorry, I'm not always the most articulate, but it's the truth of the matter is why we connected is because the humility. I'm going to tell you something about the high-level chef world. Charles and Rodrigo are the only two chefs, and Shane and Mark and Narisawa, whenever I've met them, who have accepted me wholeheartedly for who I am, regardless of being Canadian or not having Michelin stars, or I mean, I'm one of the best chefs in Canada in terms of time, like accolades, but in the world stage, no one cares. So it's been really incredible for them to treat me as an equal. And it's been, you know, really amazing that compassion and generosity they've afforded me. That's it. I'll shut up about Charles and Rodrigo and everyone now.
Thank you for sharing that, Darren. I had heard the story already of.
You've heard it, yeah. That's a special story. I don't tell a lot of people, so.
I really appreciate the words that you're putting out, and the appreciation. It's mutual, and I think, you know, we just had a very beautiful opportunity to show ourselves kind of clean in this platform, and you know, it's good to continue it, right? And this is one of the things that we were discussing, is what's happening after. Because at that time we didn't have any idea what the show was going to look like. No idea, no clue. They hadn't told us anything, and we literally saw the show at the same time as everyone else. Wow. We only had like 20 pictures that they sent us in a Google folder like 3 weeks before when the announcement was done, and we had no idea how it was going to go. So, but at that time we're like, what's going to happen and what's going to build next? And it's been a dream. It's been incredible. And also seeing how you earned respect in Calgary, and how people who know about the industry look up at you now and be like, you know, thank you for what you have done for Calgary, for the region, right? And to lift up, and it's really beautiful to see not only how much respect you've earned between your team, but also in the people in the industry, those who are kind of heart-centered and kind of clean and clear-minded, that really respect now your work, and you've earned your space. And it's just wonderful to see you now exploring this full creativity, full creative potential that you have.
We're starting an organic farm. Like I've been at the farm. I showed the pheasant eggs earlier. We're doing all of that. What, can I ask a question to your people? What was it? If I'm very curious, like that, you know, why are you here today? Why are you so interested in what we do, and how have, you know, like Charles, or just the final table, like how did it touch you? Because it's a really interesting experience. That, you know, your question earlier, that, you know, my performance on an episode, you know, for me, I never think of the impact. Is there anything that we can do to reward that generosity you're showing us by listening and helping share our message, I guess? Hey, Millie. I saw Millie. Can't hear you.
Hey.
Oh, hi, Millie.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I think one thing that struck me about the final table was just the generosity and the respect that y'all showed each other. Typically in a lot of, at least American game shows, it's very cutthroat. People just kind of trash everybody. And that's why it was so refreshing when the Great British Baking Show came on. Because I was like, oh my gosh, they're so helpful. You know, they help each other and they're nice. And for me, like, this was the first time that I had seen chefs really be like respectful to each other. And I think when our industry has such a reputation for harassment and just kind of abuse, that was really good to see that example. Because I do think that the age of the angry chef is dying, but we need to kind of keep showing that we can do that and still produce good work and good product and still be respectful to our colleagues.
I believe that we can. I never want to see the death of the passionate chef, but I do agree with the angry chef, because the thing is a lot of times that when a mistake is made, the punishment now, it used to be, before the internet or before social media became such a powerful tool, it's been great. Social media has been great because look at what we're able to do right now. But if I send something out that's wrong, not only is it economically, not only does it cost me money, that's, you know, mistakes are going to happen, but the vitriolic rhetoric that will be touted online as a result of your mistake really impacts you mentally. I find that very hard to deal with. So somebody taught me this just yesterday, my very first chef I ever worked for, because I'm a bit aggressive in the kitchen. Charles knows this. And I'll be honest, I never attack anyone personally, but I can be very like, get it out, move, this has to go, because I feel that pressure. He said, if you're a captain and you're on a ship and you're going to war and the bullets are whizzing by and the cannons are firing, you cannot be freaking out and yelling and screaming like the world is ending. You got to keep it cool. You got to be really calm. So the show, I'm glad to hear that that had an impact on you, because everyone there was at the highest level. And I think that we're telling a lot of bad stories about bad restaurants. And I would love to hear some good stories about good restaurants, because I want to see more women in the industry. I want to see more people I mean, there's lots of minorities in the industry, but I want to see it, because my experience in the industry is that the industry has been the great equalizer. Gay, straight, black, white, male, female. In my career, can you cook or can you not cook? That's always been the equalizer. So I really agree. And I was really glad that they decided to show us that way. Even when there was conflict, they did try to mitigate it, eh, Charles?
Yes, thank you for saying that, because there's something really important. I want to shout out for the people who created this show, because those people were eventually the ones that had created shows where there was the big aggressive and more competition. They created that, and they decided to do Final Table differently. And they told us since day one, there were still 18 teams, not 12, 18. We arrived to LA, and they said, guys, we want everyone to shine. We want everyone to be seen in a positive light. And that really made a difference as well, because they set the tone for us to really be ourselves. So I think that's...
Yeah, everybody was themselves in that program.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
There's a few questions.
I talk a lot, so just...
Jasenia, you're perfect. We want to hear you, Darren. That's why we're here. So Jasenia asks, I would like to know how you would define your work in 3 words in the Final Table, your work in the Final Table in 3 words.
3 words. Honest, emotional, and technical.
Yeah, that sums it up.
But the emotion that you feel when you cook is the most important thing. Putting your soul on a plate. That's why, again, the angry chef is because the people care so much about what they're doing that when something goes wrong, it hurts you. Like, if you look at me crying in the Japanese episode, and I was so, you know, I didn't do very well. I didn't think I had it, because I was aiming to do 5 dishes and I only was able to get the 3 parts done, not the 5. So I was mortified, and I didn't think I had it anything. And I think that your soul and who you are and how much you care about what you're cooking affects your cuisine. Charles cares about the world and the plant life and people, and that's reflected. I've cooked with Charles. He cooked with us in some of the coldest weather in Canada ever last year, and what he put on the plate is it's poetry. What I put on the plate are big flavors and smash in them. I mean, you saw I just did 6 oysters, like, for whatever reason. It's a reflection of who I am. I'm big, I'm passionate, I'm opinionated, I'm driven. But the one commonality is we care so much about people. There's not a restaurateur, a chef. And I think we also have to have a place in our industry for forgiveness, because no one can grow without forgiveness. And I'll tell you this, I have yelled at people in my kitchens. I've never thrown anything or insulted anyone personally. That's the line I've tried to hold for myself, but that doesn't justify some of the things. I have not been always kind in my kitchens, and because I cared so much about what's there. And now it's changing, because I mean, we're talking 5 years ago, even before, especially the Final Table allowed me that relaxation to be like, I know what I'm doing, we can chill out. And I think it's important. So when you go and you can dine, tell the chef they're doing a good job. Tell them you enjoyed it. Go online, leave them something positive, because I'll tell you, chefs really only look at the negative reviews. And I think that's a problem with our society, is we just look at the negative. That's why I want to tell these positive stories. My yakitori chef at Shokunin is the youngest female yakitori chef on the planet. She's not going to get any accolades. She's 20 years old. She's a fucking demon. She's incredible. And she just turned 20. She's been working with me for a year. And I'm bringing her to Japan. Well, we were supposed to go to Japan and then COVID, because I believe in her so much. When I was running the Final Table, my head chef, Shiloh, was a woman. I've always had half of women in my kitchen just because it's worked out that way, not intentionally. I just have hired the best people for the job. And it just turns out that that's who it was. I was raised by a single mom, you know, the North American cliche. The tremendous power in humanity has power. And I'm a little different. I believe that women and men, we have differences that make us both amazing together. And we need to celebrate those differences, but also not limit that opportunity. And so we've never limited that in our kitchens. And so it's been a powerful thing for Rihanna, but she's not getting the accolades. I've tried to tout this story about her and get her in magazines and get her published so she gets that. And people aren't listening the way they should, because, you know, it's Canada. If it was the first female yakitori chef in New York, it would be all over the world. And so I'm so proud of her, but she's an absolute incredible phenom. But she gets mad when other chefs screw up her grill, because she cares about it and she has so much pride in being, and she's the youngest female yakitori chef on the planet. We have the only female omakase. So omakase is like very high-end sushi at Nupo, the only female omakase chef in Canada. It's not a job that's given to women, and Japan has many good things, but there's a patriarchy there that isn't ideal. And so when she got the opportunity, she was crying. And her name's Mackie, and you'll see her all over my Instagram. She's like my best friend. She's incredible. 40 years. She's 42. She's been making sushi for 15 years. No one's ever given her the opportunity to shine. So there are positive things happening. And I think we need to start telling positive stories, because if all you hear is it's abusive and it's sexist and they're assholes, nobody's going to come into our industry. So we need to foster environments where people can, but we also need to congratulate the good stories and forgive the people who are trying to change. I think forgiveness is what Nelson Mandela made happen, right? He didn't say, fuck the whites, let's throw them all out. You know, he said, look, we have to forgive, because that's how the chain of violence, the chain of even, and that's why we're talking about food and recovery today. Oh, it's our fault. We're a virus. We have to forgive ourselves for our past transgressions and find a way to move forward in a really powerful way, if the recovery is going to happen. So yes, cruise ships suck. They're unsustainable, but there's one cruise line that's working with me to do sustainable seafood in all of their ships over the next 5 years. Do you know the impact that's going to have? Yeah, the other stuff isn't great yet, but it follows. And so you have to forgive and celebrate the good too. We can't always just attack the bad. We do have to celebrate some of the good things that are happening as well. Sorry, again, I just go on and on.
Stop apologizing. It's good. Like this space is.
Sorry, eh?
Thank you. So we have two more questions. What you just shared, but I just wanted to keep it at you. And I have two more questions. One, Elisa is going to ask you. Okay. Elisa, do you want to unmute yourself? And then we're going to ask Anna.
Hi, Elisa. Hi, Anna.
Hi. So thank you for doing this today. It's really nice to hear from you guys. I was inspired.
Hi.
What was that?
Oh, hi. I'm just saying, what's your name?
Nathan.
Hey, Nathan. Go ahead.
I just touching briefly on how Final Table impacted me. I left nursing and moved to a different state to go to culinary school. And I grew up in a very rural agriculture town that had no fine dining in it. And so I hadn't seen fine dining chefs as an art. And so seeing people on the show intersect art, history, you know, ancestral cooking with sustainability, it really validated going into the culinary arts for me. And so I really appreciated and held on to that and felt okay with myself going into the culinary field. So thank you guys.
I would say thank you though for saying that to me and saying that to us, because I want to have an impact, and the world needs female culinary heroes right now. So it is primed. I'm going to throw an oyster cliche, but right now the culinary world is an oyster. Everyone wants you right now. So take all of your ideas, learn the focus, learn the small details that you need to do, but have the courage to go after it. There's nothing that can get in your way right now, because at least in my kitchens, we need female culinary leaders. I mean, it's even now for my series, trying to find women to participate in the chef exchange has been so difficult because they're so in demand. So you absolutely made the right decision. You should be really proud of yourself. And I'm sure Nathan is proud of you. He seems stoked. So
I'll interject quickly. Eliza is amazing, and she thinks outside of the box in such creative ways, and she's rocking it.
You cook, Eliza?
Thank you, Katie.
So to segue off of that, our question is a technical question on the use of koji. And our question is on your process, if you've ever used it to, enhance the flavor of meat, and if you've used, and how exactly are you, adding it to the koji? How long are you letting it sit?
I'll show you.
You take it off before you cook it and eat it?
Yeah, so this is called shio koji. Okay, so this is inoculated rice with salt that's been fermented. So this is a marinade you put on things like chicken and poultry. So this is called shio koji. So I've taken the rice and I've inoculated it. Okay, and you can find all this. You know what? I'll do you one better. There's a book, a brilliant book that just came out called Koji Alchemy. And it's an Instagram, you can follow them on Instagram, Koji Academy or Koji Alchemy. They have a book that just came out. You can order it on Amazon. And they have everything. I use it to ferment salamis. If you send a message to my Instagram, I can help get that to you, Chef Darren Maclean. I can get anything that you're interested in and any information, because it's it's more than I can answer in one thing. But as far as meat goes, you can use it as a fermentation aid to dry salamis. So like, let's say you're doing a dry cured lonzo, you can actually smother it in koji mold, and actually, because you'll intentionally spray a salami to get the mold to start the fermentation on the outside, or to protect and fight off the back bacteria. You can use koji for that. You can actually use koji, but you have to be very careful when making salami because you're using the raw meat. You can actually use koji as a bacterial culture instead of like how they'll use dextrose or you'll ferment your salami. You can actually ferment your meat with koji, but you need a more of a fine powder and you need a very active koji to do salamis. You can put it on the outside of a steak for a couple days. And it will do a bit of that kind of dry aging thing. It more dries it out, not unlike dry aging. So but just send me a message and I'll give you some links to the book and the Instagram account, because you can use it for fermented vegetables, meat. It's incredible. And koji essentially, and he also teaches you wild yeast as well. And
that definitely was going to spawn off of our goal is to start making some sake, but we were trying to figure out how to proliferate the koji and then start using it on other things. So yeah, that's actually really helpful.
Yeah, cool. I'll give you all that. And if you need any help, Miho Amada, she's an amazing female toji. So Miho, Miho Imada, Miho Imada. She's one of my very close friends. And so anything and any questions you need on sake, I'll make an introduction. She doesn't speak much English, so I'll help with some of the translation. We'll figure it out. But she's somebody you should look into. And then if you're ever in Tokyo, you need to go see Maria Chiba. She's the only female badass sake sommelier who owns her own place, and she does the most amazing cocktails. And Rene Redzepi.
Oh hell yeah!
All like chefs right on her wall when they go there. So I wrote over Rene Redzepi. Just a little bit on the side. I just took a little. So when I was there, so she's really amazing. It's called Gem by Moto, GEM by Moto. So lots of really great resources.
Can't wait to go to Japan with you, Darren.
Dude, when you go, we're going together. Like that is a 100% has to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, one more question that comes from Anna, who she has a baby next to her. So she asked, what is your favorite food?
Oh man, my favorite food?
That question is just hard.
My favorite food, like dish or just like an ingredient,
I guess both. Answer for both.
My favorite dish is carbonara, made with smoky bacon though, not pancetta or guanciale. It has to be smoked bacon. I think is one of my favorite dishes. It hits everything for me. My favorite food. Oh man, I like coriander, but I guess I just eat it. My favorite food. I got to go probably with sushi, I guess, as a dish. Never mind. Don't I just say carbonara? Sorry, favorite food. I like mangoes. Oh, mangosteen. Mangosteen. Hands down, best thing to eat ever. Yeah, mangosteen.
It's incredible. That fruit is really off the hook. All right. Well, Any other question from patrons? Otherwise, we're gonna let Darren continue with his day. Or maybe I can show you how my dad is still working, even if it's time.
Let's go say hi to your dad quick.
Say hi to my dad.
And just buzz in with your questions if you have any. I'm happy to answer any of them.
Okay, we're going on an expedition.
I think GM and Darren's work ethic is similar.
Yeah, I have a lot of work left today, but not for a bit. I still have an hour, so I've devoted most of my time to be able to hang out with Charles.
Papa, Papa, t'as 2 minutes? T'as 2 minutes?
I'm gonna multitask here.
Réclame. I just said his fans are wanting to talk to him. So hold on, I'm gonna.
Je crois que je connais ici quelqu'un.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Is it
En
someone?
español o français?
Tu connais Darren? C'est le
Darren.
chef de Final Table.
Ça, Katie?
Yes, you recognize Katie.
Salut, ça va?
Hi, GM.
Ah, merci.
So,
Ça
qu'est-ce que
me
tu
fait
fais là?
plaisir.
What are you doing?
What I am doing? Seeds. Je suis en train de semer des radis et des carottes.
He is planting carrots and radish.
Oh, wow.
Il y a des histoires.
How does he plant them? How far apart is he planting? I'm about to seed carrot myself. Is there a way to seed the carrot where I don't have to like pull carrots all the time?
Ouais, t'as écouté
oui.
la chanson. Alors la question c'est comment tu fais pour la semer tes carottes? Parce que lui aussi il va semer des carottes et des radis. Et comment tu fais? Quel est l'espacement et tout ça? Darren.
Darren.
Tu peux dire en français, moi je te
Alors,
traduis.
Darren, le mieux, c'est que tu viennes ici et je t'apprends à semer les
Okay.
radis.
So the best is that you come here and that he teaches you how to plant your radishes.
As soon as COVID is done, well, I'm coming to visit Shane in France, his family.
Yes,
So visit.
yeah. But don't say it too loud because we're live on YouTube and I think it's a surprise.
Oh, it's not.
It's not. It's
No,
not,
I already
right?
thought. Yeah, it's not. He already told me. He's the one who told me.
One thing is partly the answer, because my dad is being cheeky, I'm gonna put my light here, is that so right now we're planting tomatoes, right? Tu peux me tenir ça une seconde? So we're planting tomatoes, if you veux me. So we're planting tomatoes here. We have a few tomatoes here. We have another tomato here, right? And tomatoes are only going to give in about a month and a half, right? So we have one row of tomatoes here, one row right here, more on this side. And in the center, we just threw seeds of carrots and
Oh, okay. And the radish. Hello? Oh, I think we've lost him. I think we've lost Charles. Oh, no, wait.
steering. So that way, on that piece of land that is basically unused while the tomatoes grow, we're putting the carrots and the radishes together, blended. And so
Okay.
once they start growing, there will be kind of a blend between both, and they actually do quite well together on the same patch of land. And then when we harvest those, the tomatoes start giving. So it's kind of, complementary.
Yeah, because this is my first garden, so I'm pretty excited.
Non, mais c'est pas lui qui a gagné, c'est son.
Mais ça fait rien.
He wants to congratulate you. He asked, he's the one who won. I was like, no, he's the partner of the one who won. Congratulations, anyways.
Thank you very much.
You was my favorite.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. That's incredible. Thank you. Yeah, well, it was funny because sometimes certain episodes we would root for each other. Like I rooted for Charles more times than I can count for Charles and Rodrigo. You've done an amazing job with your son.
I was his second favorite after you. No, but
your dad's very charming. I can see why everyone wants to say hello to him.
You'll figure out for yourself, and you wouldn't. You're gonna want to buy the house next door, and
I do. I will leave Canada one day. Yes. So
yeah. Right. C'est tout. So he's asking me to introduce the patrons, right? So yeah, Geralda, elle vit aux États-Unis. Il y a Millie, Nat, elle est à Londres. Elisa, elle est à Portland, en Oregon.
Ah, ok.
Ensuite, je ne sais pas, Diego, je crois qu'il est colombien, je ne suis pas sûr. Yesenia es una profesora mexicana,
Ah, ok.
enseña cocina. And Etienne, Isadora, Grethel, she's from Hong Kong. Is it Hong Kong or Philippines? Philippines, you're from Philippines,
Ah,
Grethel.
Philippines, ok.
Isadora from Brazil.
Ouais.
And Anna, I'm not sure where you are from. Oh, well, there we go. Hello,
Germany.
hello. Germany.
Ah, ok.
Beautiful.
Ouais, ouais. Tu les embrasses tous ceux qui sont présents là de ma part. Ouais.
Yes, perfect. All right. Well, I wanted to.
Charles, this was amazing. We have to cook again soon. Hopefully August works.
Yeah, for sure.
If not,
Curious.
let's do this again in a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it again. And thank you all patrons for showing up under such short notice. Darren, I had the idea a few hours ago and I was kind of, Darren, do you mind? Anyways, it's
anytime we do this, keep your people, any of your people, please.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So last thing, I want to give a shout out because this, what's happening right now is actually a very interesting. We're talking about femininity and masculinity, right? So while we are here talking to you all, the person who's doing the most important job is my sister, which is she's watering the plants. And as you all know, when you seed something, the most important work is to water. So here's Charlotte watering.
Hello.
Hello, hello. So here we are, like all our little family, doing all the complementary work. And she's kind of
stuck in an apartment. Oh my God.
Yeah, look at all the beauties here that are growing. Amazing. So we have carrot. No, so there's like huge salads and onions all over. Huge lettuce. Look at that. Look at that little.
Oh man. When does the growing season start in France? Here it's starting now in May.
So those salads actually started growing in December. They were kind of they were wild seeds. I mean, the seeds that replanted themselves, and my father then moved them just a month ago, and so they're huge, even though it's early in the season.
Bon, tu dis à Katie que j'ai pas eu le temps de lui écrire dernièrement, mais que je pense à elle tous les jours.
Okay. But Katie, my dad says that he'll reply to your email soon, and that he thinks about you every day. He says hi.
I think about him every day too.
Katie and my dad are pen pals now, and they're sending emails. So that's cool.
Amazing. Well, listen, man, I can't wait to come and see you. To all of Charles' patrons, thank you so much for giving me your time today. I feel really blessed that I was able to spend a few minutes with you, and thanks for watching. And please, if you have any other questions that come up, just feel free to reach out. Sometimes I take a minute or two to get back to you, but it's really important that we keep engaging with one another and keeping the conversation going. So
thank you, Darren.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your questions. Good luck. Let me know about the koji.
Yes.
Good luck with your farm.
Thank you. Yeah, follow along. You'll see what our farm looks like. It's just a few fields and a greenhouse. It should be good. Okay, bye, guys.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.